Okay, well, welcome to Plastic Model Answers, plastic modeling answers. We're going to begin this actual assembly of the 1:32 scale Grumman F-14 Tomcat by Tamiya. The way we're going to begin the assembly on this is we're going to start taking things out of their plastic bags and kind of clipping off the sprue gates and making sure that they get cleaned up and that the parts are laid out where we want them to be. So one of the first things is don't ever take out the clear parts until you're really ready for them, because this plastic bag actually does a great job in protecting them. But we will need to get into this at some point because it does have a seam line right up in the canopy here, and there's also some plastic parts that need to go up into the reverse side of the canopy. So there will come a point where we need to get into this, but right now the protection is important. So I'm going to set this up in my little box up there that will allow me to keep it out of the way, keep it out of danger, but at the same time it's there for me. I'm also going to take my little resin ejection seats and put them in there again for protection. These guys, they have some small parts on them that can come off. In fact, I'm just going to snap that off. You can see how easily that comes off. Actually, I've already lost one of the arms that it came that way, but I've already lost one of the arms. Luckily, the kit itself has pilots and ground crew where I can replace that arm. So we'll put that up in its little box. And for right now, I'm going to also leave these 3D decals inside of their protective case and put them up here as well, just to kind of keep them out of the way. So what we'll do is we'll first get started on the front cockpit section. And of course, I go and make a big mess of my own organization there. So let me get this cleaned up real quick and out of the way. See, that's the fun part of these raw videos. You get to see everything that happens. Anyway, so we're going to crack open, if you will, this section first, and we're going to kind of take a look at it, look for some flashing and where we're going to eventually need to sand off. So there's a little bit of flashing down in here. It looks like the top is good. But we've got this section with a sprue gate that needs to come off, and I'm going to clip it off right now just because it looks like it's starting to kind of rip at the plastic. Now, what I've done here, because you might be able to see it's starting to kind of rip at the plastic, and you want to keep that, otherwise you're going to end up having to fill it. I've just cut it off so it will stop bending and causing problems. Now what we could do is we can come in a little bit closer, and I probably did hit it a little too close there, but began trimming that off as well. And so we'll look at this one, and looks like I've got the same situation here. Hopefully I won't make the same mistake. Now, so I did this one a little different. I cut it off and left a little bit more on there. I can now sand that down at a later point. But I'm going to set these aside on the right section for it, and make sure that my trash goes into a little bit of a trash bag here. All right, next one we're looking at to get open is the under fuselage section. I guess I need to cut it a little bit more deliberately here to get that one out. Now again, I'm going to look for flash. There's a little bit of flash on here. You got to remember this mold for Tamiya, this goes back to the early 80s for a portion of it. Now this particular piece has a date stamp of 1994 on it, so this one isn't as old, because I know that this particular Tomcat model, they originally came out in the early 80s, then they did a revision in 1994, and then this particular revision they did was in the late 90s or early 2000s. I want to say 98 for some reason, maybe early 2000s. But this particular piece of the fuselage was redone at that point because of finer and more capable molding. So I'm taking a look at this. So I don't want to crack this out yet, because then it will lose support in here. So we'll do that when we actually build it. And I'm also noticing that we're going to have to drill out various holes for the weapons bays. Now, what's really nice about this is, because remember in the introduction video I said we're going to use magnets, and here are the little magnets that we're going to use for this effort. What we're going to do with these, instead of, it's like a pill container, you got to line it up and then pop it off. But what we're going to, these little bitty magnets in here, so these, if you can see them here, are so small that, and they're very, very powerful. Oops. What we're going to do is we're going to drill out. We're going to take a drill bit. We're going to drill out and just embed them into the fuselage in certain points, or into the weapons racks at certain points, so that you just attach the weapons racks that way. So in other words, what I'm saying is this is nice here because we don't have to actually drill these things out, and we can make sure that the plastic is still nicely covered over until we're ready to put these in. So no work needs to be done on that yet. Let's put our magnets back so we don't cause ourselves any trouble here. And these things are more powerful than you think they are. I'm actually shocked how small they are and how powerful they are, and I can't get them back in there because they aren't cooperating. There we go. All right, I'll just set that aside for a while. All right, once again, take your trash, put it away. Now what I like to do is I kind of push down on these bags to make sure that there's no parts that are actually in there that we need to deal with. So next bag. Now you could open these bags by just popping the staples that are on the end as well, but I've seen these staples actually scrape the kits before and kind of cause problems with them. So I was trying to be very careful with that. And so I'm looking on this one again to see there's a good deal of flash on these. Now these bladders here that go on the back, they've got permanent for either wings forward or wings back, so we're only going to use a certain portion of them. But this is the upper portion of the fuselage that goes on like this. So what we're going to do is I'm going to clip some of these off so that they're in the prep phase. And they don't get ruined. So I'll put that over there. Back there. And we'll just set these guys aside for right now. And you could almost start, you know, modelers like to play. There's nothing wrong with that. In some respects, it is a little bit of a toy. But even back in the 1980s, when Tamiya put the design of this kit together, they did it with such care, even though it's one of their older kits and really does need to be completely redone, like their new 1/48 scale kit. But you'll see a lot of similarities between the 1/48 and the 1/32 scale kit in assembly as well. For example, they have this section here on the 1/48 scale kit that is very similar. The tops go together just like we're talking about, or we're looking at right here as well. And this is very important because on the real one, these pieces actually fluctuate a little bit depending on whether your wings are forward or wings are back. And so there is a natural line right here, and this was one of the big controversies when the 1/48 scale kit came out. For people that don't know Tomcats, is knowing about that fluctuation or that rise and lower piece. And a couple of the experts out there had to go and show people that no, there is a natural line there that you shouldn't have to need to to fill, there will need to be, you know, we'll pay attention to our joint line right here on the spine, because that's a spot where it would either need to be filled or maintained. But like I said, modelers like to play, and I always like to get an idea about how, when I'm starting out, exactly how big am I dealing with a kit here. So here's, this might be difficult to do without some tape, but you kind of get an idea. Your kit, it'll be like yay big when it's all said and done. So about 2.5 feet long. So anyway, let's keep proceeding with taking some of the bigger parts off here. And I'm really interested in this process. I'm also interested in taking a look at these next pieces that we're going to look at, because this involves the tail. And you may recall I said that I was going to try and light this Tomcat up with the nav lights, but I wasn't sure if it was going to take it or not. So here's why. There's a nav light that sits right at the top of this spot right here. And in order for me to get a fiber optic or other type of thing up there, I would have to drill down and somehow almost damage this whole piece in order to get them up in there, because they're not actually two halves. If these were two halves, I could put a piece of wire or a piece of fiber optic up in there that would reach up in there. But because the second half is just an insert for the inside piece here, it's going to be difficult. Now, one other option that I could use, now that I'm looking at this and thinking about it, is I could cut the rudder out and then take that piece off and take a very, very fine drill bit and work my way straight down in there and then run things along here. But again, I'm thinking that just may be way, way too difficult to do, because the plastic, even once you get beyond that, is so thin that you might end up just creating a bigger mess than what it's worth. Although worth is a relative statement. It would look really, really cool to have nav lights that were really lit up. All right, to be determined, but I'm leaning towards not having lit nav lights, but instead there's an alternative solution for this. The alternative solution to lit nav lights is a very, very high gloss and transparent type of fingernail polish that could also work. Obviously, it doesn't light up at night, but if you're viewing it in lighting, it would still look pretty cool. So here I am again. This one, okay, this is the other side of the vertical tail. So Tomcat has two vertical tails. You'll notice, originally I said on this one, the nav light was on the back. Well, on this one, the nav light's on the front. And again, there's very little way to get anything up in there. Now, what I could do, is I could dig a trench, put my light or fiber optic up in there, and then rebury it. But again, that just may ruin the whole deal. And then technically, I'd have to go look at my references, but technically I think there's a white light on the back of this one, and there's just no way a white light's going on that. So even if I went to the method of removing the rudder and running something down here on that one, which I believe is, this one is the right side, this is the left side, I still would have a challenge over here on the left side. So I really want to do that light up, but I don't know. That's going to be difficult. Glove vanes, early Tomcats. You guys are getting a Tomcat education here. If you're not Tomcat fans, yeah, Tomcat's my plane. So there are 3 airplanes that I absolutely, for various reasons, enjoy. Tomcat has always been the top. Then the SR-71, which I'm waiting for the Revell kit to come out here in a couple of months. And then, astonishingly, the C5 Galaxy, just because how in the world something so big could fly. And I used to watch them as a kid. But anyway, the Tomcat, glove vanes on the Tomcat, they used to have these, I don't know how you could describe it, as canards or extra vanes that came out of the, at different situations, came out of the forward piece of the fuselage here. And actually this goes on this side. And I believe usually wing swept, high speed type of solutions, just to give it a little bit extra lift, a little bit extra work. And but they covered these over, and I've got to figure out, I can't remember exactly what year they made them inoperable, because they were actually causing more problems what they were worth. So I'm gonna have to go back and check on that for this kit. Again, this kit was a 1989, 1990 type of Tomcat. I'm gonna have to go look the references on this particular Tomcat to see if they were actually covered over or just permanently shut down. But clipping these guys off here, get them ready for working together. And as I'm clipping these off, I'm just continuing to think about this fiber optics situation and how it probably is not going to work. But I may just give it a try and see what happens. May just give it a try and see what happens. Because I really do think it would look cool. It's just one of those that's potentially very difficult to do. And this kit's not cheap, so once you destroy it, it's not fixable per se. So, but yeah, so those pieces go back later. Now we'll do this one, and then we'll call it a moment, if you will, for shutting down the video. But this one's got a number of different interesting parts on it. So, for example, I talked to you when we were doing the initial video about how barren the cockpit is, which is a shame. I mean, 1994, they could have fixed it, and definitely with this revision, they could have fixed it. But thank goodness, these guys, Quinta Studios, makes some amazing stuff. And I've already put Quintas in a couple of kits. An F-16, I put it into a Yak 130, and they just look amazing. In fact, let me get my F-16 out here and see if we can take a look at it. So this is a 1-of-48 F-16B, or D actually, from Hasegawa. I don't know if you guys can see in that very well or not, but man, it just turns the cockpit into an amazing work. Sharp lines, the dots in there, really does a great job. And in a 1-in-32 scale, it is gonna look amazing. This is one of the first things we're gonna work on, and we will have a video specifically just for applying the Quinta stuff. So stay tuned for that coming up very, very soon, because that's gonna be one of the first things we worked on. Now, this is one of the reasons I like to take care of these parts in advance, because you can see some of these bigger parts, like this nose cone here, is bent over and it's falling apart or falling off the trees, and that's what causes these sprue gates to break. And when they break, then you get bad sections here that you end up having to do filling on. So clipping them off and getting them ready from that perspective is you know, as you're handling it, fixes things. And also, you notice this one here, this is one of the intake trunks. We're going to take both the intake trunks off. They've got some sharp points on here, And when you clip these off and set them aside, you're not manhandling them, or person handling them if we want to be politically correct. You'll find I won't be politically correct. But anyway, you can set these aside so these sharp points can retain their sharp points. Because if you, those are the kind of things that if you bend or break, just they're not fixable, and it doesn't look good in whatever you try and do to fix it. So we kind of save these things by pulling them off like that. Now, again, Tomcat geekery going on here. So what's really cool about this kit is even with its age, the engineering, again, they understand that the Tomcat has multiple, inside the intakes, they have multiple layers of gates or these ramps, I guess you could call them, that are inside there in order to slow the air down or bleed some of the air off. And what's cool is they provide you with different options, not just, you know, simple options of placing the ramps in different configurations, but they actually give you the different ramps in their different configuration positions and the actuators for them, so closed and open type of situations. So that's really kind of cool. Now we don't have to worry about them breaking off, and if they do, they do. So one of the other things I do, so there's a lot of cockpit pieces on here. One of the other things I do is, you know, like we'll see right here that these are the steps that go on the cockpit area. It's this section. So the pilot will climb up the ladder and then step in, or the Rio will step into these steps before climbing into the cockpit. And I don't want to lose those, but at the same time, I want them in their right spot here. So what I'll do is I'll clip off the entire thing, sprue gate, so it maintains a connection here until I'm ready, and then I'll place them in their location. Now, this is another cockpit piece. It's the back of the canopy sill. So I'll move that over there. And then here's the canopy sill. Now, again, I want, this sprue gate offers some sense of protection from these sides flopping around. So I'm not going to clip them off here. I'm going to go and clip it off back here in order to do my prep work. And that way it provides some protection on there for them and what they've got going in the future. Now, one of the other aftermarket parts that we're going to deal with, you can see right here very carefully, is the nose cone pitot tube. So it goes on right there. I don't care about that puppy. We're replacing that with a piece of metal. There's some wonderful metal, turned metal parts out there these days that did not exist even back in the late 90s, early 2000s when this kit, particular kit, came out. And you can replace them, and there's so much more sturdy and available. Now this section here is a lot of the landing gear parts, and there's a few cockpit pieces in here. We're going to take those cockpit pieces out so we can prep it, but most of the stuff I'm just going to leave on here because we're not even going to use it, being that this is going to be an in-flight bird. No cockpit or no landing gear pieces are going to be needed. We're just going to kind of scoot past a lot of this stuff. Now, there are, like I said, there's a lot of cockpit stuff in here. There's the shroud for the front. There's the front canopy or front pilot's pieces. There's rudder pedals. There's joystick there. There's the back section. There's a lot of stuff here that I actually may want to leave on the sprue for some painting when I hit the airbrush with it. So I'm going to, I'm actually going to clip these out. And I just messed up that one. But I'm going to clip these out and leave them on the sprue gates for painting purposes. See, now I can hold this and I can at least get the base paint coat down before I have to go further with it. So this can be helpful, you know, saves your hand some paint on it too. But again, you know, a lot of this stuff is not even going to be used. Now I may use this, for example, which is the top side of the forward landing gear, because it actually could provide some strength for the sides of the sides of the fuselage in the forward end. But much of this stuff I'm probably not going to use as we move forward. Obviously I'll use the landing gear, bay covers. Remember when I was talking earlier that you can have an option for the forward bays to be open. There's the split doors, or they give you this one nice insert that goes in, and you don't have to worry about figuring out how to mate those together, which is really nice. So anyway, this is the prep work we're doing on the Tomcat. I'm going to go off video for a while and do a little bit of sanding. You guys don't need to see all that crud. And potentially even come back and have the base colors painted on the cockpit, so we can get started on some of that work. So enjoy. I'll come back with a little bit more done.